introduce a new initiative that we will be starting soon in our congregation called Grow Groups. I've had some conversations with some of you and also mentioned it in our Sunday services. But for some of you, this will be a new idea. One of the functions of church is to facilitate the growth of people on their walk with Christ. We are not to grow to become better people, but we grow to be conformed to the image of Christ, as stated in Romans 8. We are called to be witnesses of Christ, and as we grow to the image of Christ, so we become better witnesses of Christ. Many times in church, we take a very one-size-fits-all approach to growth. But as we all know, people are individuals and are in different places in their walk with Jesus. So to facilitate this individualistic growth, we have identified 4 growth areas. These are relational areas and are relational aspects of Jesus. The first one is to grow in our relationship with God. Just like other relationships that need growth, so our relationship with God needs growth. We need to get to know Him, and we need to grow in intimacy with Him. The second one that we've identified is to grow in our relationship with ourselves. Circumstances through our life and the opinion of the world forms an identity in us, an identity that's not necessarily true. We also know that God has an opinion of us, and that God has done certain things for us, which creates a certain identity that we have in God. And to grow in a relationship with ourselves is to grow in that identity. The third area that we've identified is to grow in community. That is, to grow in the relationship with the people close to you. To grow in a relationship with your family. To grow in a relationship with your spouse or your children or your rest of your family. But it goes wider than that, and is also to grow in relationship with your faith community, whether it be your small group or even the whole congregation. Each one of us have certain needs, but also that each one of us have unique gifts as well. And it's only within the context of community that needs are really met and gifts can be given. So to grow in community is to grow in the ability to have your needs met by others and to give your gifts to others. The fourth area that we've identified is to grow in your relationship with the world. As we all know, there are people in the world that are lost, that haven't heard the gospel yet and have not turned to Christ. And to grow in our relationship with the world is to grow in our ability to preach the gospel to those that are lost. But it's not just the lost that we grow in our relationship with, but also with the least in society. There are individuals in society that cannot look after themselves. I'm speaking of the poor, the elderly, and the sick, that also need the love of Christ. And to grow in our relationship with the world is also to grow in a relationship with the least in society. Now, we've also gone and divided each main grow area into sub-areas as well. This will then make up the topic for each of the grow groups that will be formed. So each grow group will be a group of people that have identified the same sub-area and will come together to grow together. An example of this is we have divided growing in relationship with God in prayer and in worship and in scripture. So the other main areas will be divided up as well. We will provide an information document that gives the detail of grow groups for you and will hopefully answer any questions that you might have. the next steps in the process of grow groups is for each individual to identify the specific area for them to grow in. We will provide you with a reflection guide that you can use as a tool to go to God and to ask God, what area does He want you to grow in? Because we must remember, it's not our effort that causes us to grow, but it is God through His Spirit and through His grace that causes growth in us. So it's important to take the time and to sit with God, have a conversation with God, and let God identify the area that He wants you to grow in. My heart is that grow groups will facilitate the growth of each individual in a specific area that God identifies for them to grow in. So I am excited to grow with you, to grow closer to the image of Christ.